Industry Talks by ARC Advisory Group.
Welcome, everybody, to ARC Industry Talks, the monthly podcast where we discuss the latest industry trends. I'm here with my colleague, Florian Güldner.
Hey.
My name is David Humphrey. Today's Monday. We're back in our very comfortable studio here. Did you manage to find time to do the ArcWire analysis?
Yes, and we did that again, back to spreadsheets. And there wasn't that much industry events going on. We had the consumer electronics shows in Las Vegas, but we weren't really traveling, so we went back to spreadsheets.
All right, let's talk about a few, but give me a quick overview of what the top topics were.
As you know, Siemens was at the Consumer Electronics Show, so we wrote about that, and many people were interested in these writings. One of the top click links we had in our newsletter were around the Orlando Forum that is taking place in February. We had an article from Rita, our office lead in China, about China and green energy with a focus on hydrogen. And we had always like scary and interesting topic at the same time, AI and cybersecurity, an article from Chantal Polsonetti.
Mm-hmm.
So David, you are the main lead analyst for Siemens at ARC. Can you please talk about Siemens and the Consumer Electronics Show? What happened? Why are they even there? The C55 is some years ago.
Okay. You still know that one. All right.
I have one.
Yeah, the Consumer Electronics Show is for things like robo-vacuums and other consumer devices. It's not really where you expect to find Siemens. And yet Siemens not only exhibited there this year, but they had a keynote speaking slot with the president, Roland Busch, CEO of Siemens, speaking. He did the same last year. And the reason he was even in Las Vegas is because he's talking up the partnership that Siemens started 4 years ago with NVIDIA. And NVIDIA, you know, as just an incredibly valuable, influential company in graphic chips and now moving into AI. And Siemens is taking the initiative by finding the right company to partner with, number one company, to develop the future of AI. And 4 years ago, we were there. They talked about the industrial metaverse, developing it. Whatever it is, this sounds kind of far-fetched, but at the time, at least, this year they talked about developing the industrial AI operating system. Now, to me, they didn't go into a lot of details. This will be what lies underneath what every device runs on. And to achieve this, Siemens agrees to contribute its industrial AI expertise, of which it has gathered a lot in recent years. And NVIDIA is going to share its AI infrastructure, simulation technologies, and accelerated computing platforms. Now, just to give you an idea, you know, digital twins, we have them today. We're using them. They're great for simulation, for simulating how a product is designed. And then when you have the design finished, how you actually go out and build it. Yeah. And today you can go out and simulate a few dozen different scenarios in order to find out the best one for your product, for its design, and the most optimal way to manufacture that product. In the future, you can use complex industrial foundation models that will help you factor 1,000 or factor 100,000 to test and simulate not dozens, but maybe a few 100,000 different scenarios of how best to build your product or to design your product.
And then I'm just picking the right one afterwards as a user, or what's in for the user.
That design the very sophisticated networking that goes into this. Though they'll tell you the distance equals 0, even though it's 8. So to answer your question, it's like it's a private cloud that's on premise, technically, virtually on premise, but it's an exclusive cloud, which is why it's private. There's no other people taking part using its resources as well. It's purely dedicated. It's one really thick fiber optic cable that Audi actually had their workers go out and dig up the trench to lay along the Bundesstraße going out to the data center. All right, let's move on. The ARC Industry Forum that takes place in Orlando is coming up, I think, in February. How is registration looking?
Good. I mean, we see that many people click on the registrations. We see it ramping up, and can you believe it's actually the 30th forum?
Wow.
Yeah. And on the other day, I got a notification on LinkedIn saying Andy Chatter is now employed at ARC for 40 years. Now, I did wrote Andy.
Our president and our founder.
Yeah, I did wrote Andy. So Andy, is it ARC's 40th anniversary? And yes, in January this year, we had our 40th company university.
Mhm.
And you had your 25th.
I had my 25th anniversary.
Last year. So this year the title is How AI is Driving the Future of Industrial Operations and Supply Chain. Very interesting topic. So sessions look great. We have very great presentations. We have Magnus Nunen, Head of Innovations from AstraZeneca, Ashin Parekh from PepsiCo. I hope I did not pronunciate his name too bad. Greg Davidson from Rolls-Royce, Chet Wright, CIO from Boston Dynamics, Michael Farrell, who you also know, Director of Business Transformation from West Pharmaceutical Services. He was at our forum in Sitges last year. So we have quite a diverse group of keynotes there. Looks very, very good. Of course, like the oil and gas companies are also there, like every year. On the sponsor side, we have global gold sponsor Siemens. We have our global sponsor Smar. Also Fortinet, Hexagon, Inductive Automations, LTTS, OPC, Schneider Electric, and Sededa are all gold sponsors. We have numerous others. So I mentioned all these names just to show it's a very mixed bag. It's not just a forum about the US automation companies and the oil and gas industry. It's the complete industry. Companies from Brazil, from Germany, from all over the world, also participating actively. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be very, very good, and look forward to the presentations and such, and also, David, to the networking event, to meeting people. It's always a very open atmosphere.
We do exit interviews and ask people what do they really like about the forum.
Yeah.
And the feedback has been consistent over years. The people say the presentations, they were great. I mean, great stuff. But the real value for me as an attendee was the networking, the people that I met there, I had a chance to chat with, and who I didn't expect to meet, and the resulting conversations and actions that I'm going to take.
I mean, I've been there the last few years. It's always the same. The sessions are packed, so people also really like the presentation, but the networking is a key value, and it's a key business value to be there. And I think our forum is unique in the case that there is not much left in US in terms of industry events.
That's true.
We had
company events. Everybody has their company event, but nobody has a true executive level industry event.
And it's not neutral if it's one company. So it's a very unique event, and I'm really looking forward to be there.
Great. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about hydrogen and China. And it seems like a contradiction. When I think of China, I think of coal. What's happening there?
A few years ago. So when I was my first trip to China was 2010-ish. And I had I think 5 to 10 minute walk in Beijing, and afterwards your mouth was really crispy. Last year, 1.5 years ago, I was in Shanghai. I did a 10K run along the river.
And how was your mouth?
Oh, dry. Perfect. No, it really has changed a lot. And according to the data from the National Energy Administration, by the end of October last year, the installed capacity of renewable energy across the country has reached 2.2 billion kilowatts, being almost 60% of the installed capacity. Wind, solar, everything. And we saw that, like the example that I mentioned, right? Something else happened to the city of Linz in Austria. The Vorderösterreichische Stahlwerke, Voestalpine.
Voestalpine.
They were polluting the city, and they had to clean it to get workers there and be an attractive employee and an attractive city. So this is, of course, one motivation for China to go green, to go net zero, basically. But it had also great strategic and geopolitical reasons. So China does not have much oil. They rely on imports, and they want to be self-sufficient and independent. And renewables are an option, right? So They also have a lot of e-cards. We talked about that before as well. But also power is becoming a comparative advantage for nations when it comes to AI, because we have that huge need for power for the AI mega giga monster factories. The interesting thing with hydrogen is that in the mix of renewable energies, photovoltaic, thermal solar, wind, biomass, whatever, it has some really unique characteristics. And the one thing is you can store it in one way or the other. So you can generate power with wind, and then you store the hydrogen, or you store it in you can store it, you can ship it, and this is something that really helps stabilizing the grid. And yeah, just one other way instead of just using lithium battery storage and like. It also is something that helps the decarbonization of high energy intensive industries, steel, chemical, cement. And there are processes in there that use methane and others as feedstock, or just for heating, for burning. You can burn hydrogen. And that really helps achieving the near zero life cycle carbon emissions in these industries. And you cannot do that with other energy sources, or just by substituting primary energy carriers with secondary energy carrier power. The third benefit of hydrogen is that it functions as a connection between electricity, heat, and fuel, not only in industry, but also in a greater society. So you can inject hydrogen in the gas pipelines, and it really helps making the whole society greener. It's really strategic value.
Why is it that you're always the person covering China from the European team?
It just happened that I'm traveling there since almost 15 years now. And I work very closely with the Chinese team since 15 years now. So going back and forth, visiting multiple cities, always very close to our Shanghai office. So it's not just me alone covering it, it's our team in China as well. And presumably I will be in Beijing this March again. And also, I have discussions with Chinese OEMs. I'm just involved in China discussions since 15 years. So David, the last item on our list is Chantal's article about NIST AI and cybersecurity. What is it about?
This is a report on what's happening in the U.S. Through a government agency called NIST, which I think stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And what they are doing is they're getting behind manufacturing in the U.S. They're expanding their efforts to ensure American leadership in artificial intelligence. Whether they actually ensure American leadership and the Chinese aren't faster, even the Europeans, that remains to be seen. But concrete is what they've established 2 centers to advance the delivery of AI-based technology solutions to accelerate and improve the position. There's something going on in other parts of the world too. Here in the European Union, there's a similar strategy that it's basically operates through a more decentralized network of centers rather than a single agency-run institute. The framework is primarily driven by this center called the European Cybersecurity Competence Center. It's based in Bucharest, and it serves as a central hub for consolidating cybersecurity research and funding. To give you an idea, the center recently earmarked 350 million euros for AI-powered threat detection and initiatives promoting cyber solidarity to enhance the protection of criminal entities. And I'll add just one final interpretation to that. We would think of AI as being a tool to go out and ferret out cyber threats.
Yeah.
But on the other side, AI is being used as a tool to write code for viruses. That's what we're up against. AI is actually automatically generating the threats. It's not just finding the threats on the good guy's side. Yeah. The bad guy's side are using it as a tool against industry. And that's what it's all about.
All right.
All right, Florian, thanks for your time today. In 1 month, we're going to record our next podcast, and we're going to talk about the topics and the events and the happenings at the Orlando Forum, which takes place coming up in about 2 weeks. So,
second week of February.
yeah, to our audience, thanks for tuning in today. I'm going to ask Florian to put on a pot of coffee because we're about to go into our deep dive on China. So please stay tuned. This is David, and I'm back with Florian to enjoy a round of coffee and to talk about what's happening in China. And Florian, we need to talk about China. I'm doing some research in a certain area right now on the Chinese market, and I have the impression that the certainties that we once understood as the God-given truth no longer apply. What's happening in China?
A lot. So yeah, the truth, the certainties that we once had, which made our analyst life quite easy, they're gone. So anything you mean specifically? I mean, China is
Okay, China
huge.
used to be a huge growth market. We relied on China, remember, for its reliable growth of every year, 9%. In the industrial markets, we were much higher than that. And I'm not sure of anything anymore in China because of the economic and political situations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a multidimensional problem. So we do need to talk probably top down, macroeconomic level first, then industry, and then we can finally go down to automation, all the way down to sensors and stuff.
All right, let's start with the macroeconomic trends. Well, how are things looking there?
You want a brief summary?
Give me the main points and we'll talk about them individually.
Okay, so the brief summary would be, it's not looking as easy and good as it has been in the past from the really macroeconomic framework. One of the very basics of macroeconomic growth is population growth. Everyone knows one-child policy, long time, so they have a demographic challenge. So like we in Germany or large parts of Western Europe, they actually want to turn back the clock, but well, the Chinese don't like more than one children now. It gets very expensive in the city. So that means from the population side, you will not experience more growth. If you think of that big country, China, like the coastal area is the most developed, the richest part of the country. And there the consumer markets are saturated. So you don't need a third, a fourth, a fifth BYD or NIO or whoever builds the cars. The consumers have basically everything. So for a long time, the growth from the consumer side came from the sort of moving the wealth westwards towards inland China. Also there, we are slowly starting to saturate it. So this is the consumer side. Another side is, of course, the political environment, the geopolitical environment. And it started well before Trump. So already before we had trade wars, to be honest, they were more cold trade wars than hot trade wars, but they had the geopolitical bloc building. So China is, of course, does less rely on imports to satisfy certain consumer demands, but they do rely on exports. On the import side, they do rely on certain key technologies. My prime example is always ASML. It's a Dutch machine builder who builds machine to build semiconductors. Without ASML, there is no chip, there is no AI, there are no computers. So this is one of the jewels we have in Europe. They rely on that as well, of course, some of the commodities. So if you look at this complete framework, like export-driven growth being the workbench of the world, consumer demand, and like it really seems that the traditional Chinese growth model is coming to an end, or at least gets less dynamic.
All right, let's move from macroeconomics to industries. As an example, I attended the automobile show in Munich, and I would say 2/3 of the exhibitors were Chinese. All these electric vehicles, all of them better than Tesla, all of them challenging the European market. And I thought this is a fantastic market. But then I looked into it and what's going on in China, and I found out that the market is anything but rosy. There's too many suppliers. There's the market is saturated. There's overcapacity, resulting in price drops and discounts of up to over 30%. What examples do you have of industries in China?
Well, that's from macroeconomic to industries. That seems to be actually also a common threat among these industries. So most prominent is probably the cement industries and the steel industry, where I think with cement around 50% of global capacity of cement production is in China, but not 50% of the demand. So they have overcapacities in these markets. Another funny example, I think, is tomato paste. So what they do is they produce the tomato paste, then they ship it to Italy. It gets canned, so you have the Italian flag on it, and you buy it then on the supermarket.
Suddenly it's Italian.
Yeah, suddenly it's Italian, and no one knows that. But that's a growth strategy they had for many, many years. It is really capex focused, so the local authorities really push that. It lead to new investment instead of basically maintaining the IPAs, what we are doing in Europe at least. So it leads to overcapacity, then flood the market with cheap products or cheaper products, then prices drop globally, which is good for us because the tomato paste get cheaper, or the steel and cement. So it to some extent, it's not all negative for us here in Western Europe, but once they are in the market, it also again creates dependencies. And now with the political situation, it is, of course, more and more challenging to rely on other regions, on other countries, and people try to get the supply chains more resilient. But I don't want to sound too negative here, so I'm not pointing at China saying you're just copycats. No, there is innovation there. So,
like with electric vehicles.
Yeah, for example. E-cars are a good example, where for especially for battery production, because battery is the central element. They own the supply chain, so they own the know-how of building the battery, and then also making the machines that build the battery. So that's very good vertical integration. There is one thing you still have to mention about the development and where we are right now. Overall, the productivity is lower than in Europe or in North America. And productivity is output per hour in pieces, not profitability, how much money you earn. So it doesn't matter. So, but still, you need to, when you look at these numbers, it's important to see that they manufacture different goods. So a lot of the toys and the like are manufactured there, while specialty machineries, high-end goods are still manufactured in North America and Europe. So it's different that it's true that there are different goods manufactured. On the other hand, there is that, they call it the smile curve. I think it was Stan Lee. And it means that the profitability is the highest at the beginning and at the end. At the beginning is where you have the product design, and at the end is where you have the retail, basically. So there you have the largest margin, and for manufacturing you have the lowest, and that's what they are. They are the workbench of the world. I want to add one thing, and this is something, it's mindset. The good old German engineering, the desire to build the better mousetrap, also is linked to loyalty to the company and to really the strive to get better over time. I'm not saying that's not existent in China, but there are many cases where, especially on the mass production area, that the people have problems keeping the workforce. So you have Chinese New Year, everyone gets home, and then suddenly the company misses 10, 20, maybe 30% of the workforce. They just don't come back. They stay they stay in their village. So it's different in China. It's not all worse. It's just different. And
Florian, what about Chinese automation players? I think in recent years there's a copycat business. There are a lot of locally produced copies, black market products, gray market products. But now in my research for the PLC study, I see these champions starting to emerge with their own innovation, their own product lines. I think of Innovance. I think of Xinjie. You've been to China and have actually visited these suppliers. What have you seen?
Yeah, I visited them in 2024, for example. It was interesting to see what happened in the 12 or so years since my first visit, because the first visit I went to a trade show. You saw IO modules, and they had a slogan, compatible with, and then enter a global brand, Siemens, Mitsubishi, Schneider Electric, Rockwell, whoever, compatible with, 30% cheaper. That was the business model, and these are, I would say, basically gone. The companies you have left now are in their own way innovative. That exclamation mark does not necessarily mean that the hardware alone is innovative. It can also be the business model. It can be the way something is done and how they treat it. So it's a lot of things. But you have these innovative companies here. Next to the PLC area is certainly also Subcon and Holosys from the DCS world. And one of the first markets they really had local champions were actually process instrumentation, so valve manufacturing, which is close to basically being a foundry. So the electronic complexity is lower for a valve than it is for a DCS. So with all that background, I visited Subcon, and I was super impressed by their innovation. And always keep in mind that I visited them. I think the company was 10, 11 years old by that time. It goes super fast. They have an MES system, which is app-based, so something we write about as being leading edge. They do that. They do virtualization of control. And in one of our forums in Singapore, they gave a presentation about AI, and are considered one of the forerunners here. And also for Subcon, they are very good with their business model. That means they have the service centers. They also actually have a web store where you can buy everything. You can buy a driller via Subcon, a bit like Alibaba/Amazon from the industry then. And they also do a lot of custom engineering on site. Side note, same like other players. So, and that is expected in China. So they come, they solve the problem, and they just throw a lot of manpower at it. But they're good at that. There's really a squeeze out right now. So coming back to their original question about the markets, about our market, there is a very tough squeeze out right now.
Of Western suppliers?
Non-Chinese suppliers.
Okay, yeah. So I think of the market shares of the suppliers we know dominating the market for years. What's happening to them?
In DCS, it's already basic. Subcon and Holosys are leading the Chinese DCS market. Shown in our studies, they are leading the market, and it starts in other areas as well. So we looked at that very problem, and the difference how far advanced are Western suppliers. And honestly, the Chinese vendors, they can do 80% of the tasks or more. So wherever you can actually replace it with the Chinese vendors who are significantly cheap. I'm not allowed to say any specific numbers here, even though we actually researched those numbers. But then you actually have to look again on where are the machines used. If they are in an export market, it's very likely that the machine still has Siemens, Rockwell, Mitsubishi, Schneider, ABB, whoever in there. So the big brands, because they have a global presence, so you get spare parts and the like. But the local markets for local Chinese end users is really increasingly Chinese value chain in especially critical infrastructure.
All right, Florian, thanks for your insight into the Chinese market. You've visited the country several times, and you have your own unique perspective, and I appreciate that. That's our deep dive into the Chinese market. That is not the same market that we used to know, the market of high growth, of copycat products. China is becoming its own market with its own suppliers, and it's not as dynamic as it used to be. Florian, thanks for sharing a cup of Joe with me.
Thank you, David. Hello, this is the ARC Advisory Group. We cannot take your call as we are recording a podcast. Please leave a message.
Hello, this is Rita Liu from ARC China. Today, I'll share some insights about China's humanoid robot market. Right now, humanoid robots are a total standout in the global capital market, and the Chinese market is booming as well, acting as the core growth engine for the whole track. In 2025, 2 Chinese suppliers reported their annual shipment of pure humanoid robots over 5,000 units. Now, it's worth noting that the market is still in its early days, not at a large-scale adoption yet. But those solid shipment numbers in 2025 mean the industry has officially moved from tech testing to the earliest commercial stage. This boom didn't come out of nowhere. It's driven by 3 key factors coming together. Firstly, we've hit a tech turning point. Both the brain and body of robots have made breakthroughs at the same time. Thanks to embodied intelligence powered by generative AI, robots can now understand commands on their own and adapt to new environments. The time to train robots on new movements could be cut down from days to just hours. Secondly, on the hardware side, key parts like high-torque motors and harmonic reducers have matured, and their costs have declined to a new level, where commercial use makes sense. Thirdly, China has a huge advantages in its full industrial supply chain, from upstream rare earth magnets and reducers to midstream robot body manufacturing. So, looking at how humanoid robots were shipped and used in China in 2025, we think they are no longer just for cultural shows or tech demos. They are also being tested in industrial, energy, and civilian scenarios. For example, they are doing inspections and operations in power grids and energy storage stations. And some of them are even helping with refueling different types of vehicles at gas stations. So we are confident that this market has massive growth potential ahead, with tons of room to expand applications. But to see explosive growth and widespread adoption, there are still 3 key challenges to get past. Firstly, tech isn't mature enough yet. Most products are still just for demos. They struggle to adapt to complex real-world situations. Secondly, the commercial path isn't clear. High manufacturing costs clash with limited application value, so we haven't found a core scenario that can drive large-scale profits yet. Thirdly, issues like high cost for key components, lack of unified technology standards, and incomplete safety compliance systems have made the market take a wait-and-see approach. So generally, overall, moving from the current early stage, where robots have weak intelligence, short battery life, and high cost, to the future advanced form of embodied intelligence plus general AI, it will take more than a decade to upgrade core technologies like drones, batteries, and AI algorithms. But with breakthroughs in embodied intelligence and upgrades to key components, humanoid robots will enter a positive industrial cycle. Technology upgrades will drive down costs, which expands where they are used, builds up more data, and in turn speeds up further technology progress. Okay, so all about is our sharing today. Thanks for your listening. Bye.
Industry Talks by ARC Advisory Group.